Hi everyone. So I'm hoping you can all hear me, you can all see me well. A quick response on the chat would help. Perfect. I think I'm good to go. Yeah, I think we're here for Consulting 101 Masterclass. We are Career Edge, and we're going to have this in collaboration with an academy. Just helping you understand the basics of consulting, how to break into consulting, uh, what are the job roles, everything on that front. Right? To quickly introduce myself, I'm currently a consultant with Bain and Company. That's one of your top three management consulting firms globally. And I'll describe more about what is my day-to-day, how does Bain work, or how do different top management consulting companies work, what are the sort of problems that we typically work on, right? So this is how we plan to structure the overall class. It's going to be divided into four parts over the course of the next 2 hours odd. The first part which I'll be covering is just understanding the basics, understanding what is consulting, what does it entail, right? What are the different types of problems that we typically work on? How's the typical career journey for a consultant, right? From, let's say, early levels within the firm to growing to a partner level, right? What is the journey? How does it look like? And what would it typically take for you to break through into this journey, right? The second portion would be actually a fairly important portion as well, which is making a shortlist worthy resume, right? A resume is a very important part while applying for consulting firms, while applying for jobs in general. But consulting firms have a very typical requirement, which is what they go for, right? The third is looking at guesstimates, right? So I think you would be aware, or for folks who aren't aware, consulting interviews will typically have two parts. One is solving guesstimates, and the other is solving live cases, right? So we'll be covering guesstimates, how to go about thinking through guesstimates, how do you break down the problem, what exactly are the interviewers looking in guesstimates, and the last part is actually a live case demonstration, right? This is typically something you can expect in every consulting interview. You will be given a case problem, which could be real life problems that we are solving for the clients, right? And the thought process there is what the interviewer is looking for is how, again, you're breaking down the problem, but how you're actually making it in a very structured manner, right? So we'll just begin with the first portion, which is just understanding the basics of consulting, right? What actually is consulting? We all hear about it a lot. But what happens in this world? What do people actually do? What do people look for? Right. So the very first thing is actually going to the core and understanding what are the different types of problems we solve. Right. You'll be hearing people are consulting on different problems, and it's a wide range of problems. Right. So just to give you an example of a few points, clients come to us with requirements such as saying that, hey, what are the different markets I should look at, right? Globally or within the same country that I'm operating in as well. Sorry, just a minute. Yeah. So what should I be looking at on that front? The second would be typically, how do I actually increase my revenues, right? Uh, a lot of clients come to us with the problem saying that, hey, I've been growing 10% year on year, which is fine, but I want to increase my revenue intake. I want to increase my revenue run rate, right? How do we actually do that? They could also come to us with problems on the front of saying that, hey, my profits are going down or my costs are going up, right? So this is sort of a very common problem that a lot of firms would come up with, because these are very key metrics, very key financial metrics that every company tracks, right? The third would be, again, looking at conversion rates for customers. More so with tech companies, again, with FMCGs, CPG companies as well, right? How do I increase my customer funnel? How do I bring in actually more customers? How do I increase the lifetime value with us, right? And similar problems, which is basically, I have XYZ process currently. How do I make it more efficient? I'm currently using ABC warehouse, right? How do I probably shift that to another perspective, right? So it's a wide array of problems, right? From saying that, hey, I need to know how to make money, or right from B saying that, hey, can I acquire this company as well, right? It's a very wide array of problems, but we typically work with the top management of companies there, right? And our typical answer would again be on the lines of saying that, hey, when you're looking to expand into global markets, we think that Southeast Asia would be the best market for you. And then we back it up with the reason saying that, all right, we think within Southeast Asia, you can look at Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam. and why we think you can look at these markets, right? The market size is this, it's growing at this particular rate, this is the competitive landscape, and this is why we think you'll be able to enter. And very similar things with each markets that we think you should go into, as well as what you should not go into, right? Again, looking at revenue or profit or cost sort of problems, right? We would typically tell them that these are the main levers you can start off with, and that would be your summary slide. But then you would back it up actually with reason, saying that, all right, we think you should add, let's say, 50 retail outlets. Why do we think you should add 50 retail outlets, right? How does that make sense? Is it actually a strategy that you should be growing ahead with, or how will it affect you, right? And very similar metrics across the board, which is, all right, you can look at different analytics for customer management. This is how you track your funnel. You can look at when you're trying to make a process more efficient, you can actually just look at, sorry, you can actually just look at crunching out these particular steps, or you can look at shifting your data warehousing, your database from, let's say, Azure, Microsoft Azure to AWS. You can look at different versions of AWS, and this is how it'll become more efficient. Right? So those are the typical key problems that we come up with, and that's how we go about breaking it. Right? Uh, Again, that naturally begs you or brings you to the question that, okay, why consulting? Why do firms need consultants? Right? It's a company that's been doing the same thing for 60, 80, 100 years, right? We work with fairly traditional clients as well. Let's who've been in the manufacturing industry for the longest time. They could be your foremost players in the industry, right? Very tough to have at times industry depth as they do. So then why do they need external consultant, right? It's because they would know about what's going on. uh, this is something that we've actually faced in our journey as consultants as well, right? Clients would ask you that, hey, I know all of this, why do I need you? And this is where you actually have a conversation with them, help them understand a few key points. One is, as CXOs or as top management, even as employees, right? Your day-to-day job is to run the company. Your day-to-day job is pushing certain barriers. You're making sure processes are in place. You're fighting a lot of fires, right? It becomes a little tough for you to actually take a step back to, let's say, a 40,000 feet overview. Right? Look at it, look at the problem from very, very broad perspective. And this is where consultants come in. This is where consultants have actually done really well. Take a very broader view, look at things from a very macroscopic perspective, give them a very honest view, right? And that is what is actually appreciated. uh, Secondly, again, you have an industry depth, but we've solved similar problems. We face similar situations, one, again, within the same industry with different clients, but two, across industries as well. Right. So how do you bring in learning? How do you actually bring in the same aspects that can be applied to your company, to your industry? Right. And these are actually things that have worked really well. This is something that clients appreciate, that saying that, hey, this is not something we ever thought about. And that's what helps you bring in. Third is a very nuanced sort of a form factor. It's basically you are thinking in a particular way, getting a third party validation from let's say a firm or a company that's again been able to globally transform companies. That is great validation, right? That actually helps you push the barrier. And lastly, uh, firms have a very wide network of partners, both local and global, right? For multiple scenarios, let's say fintech. Fintech is very rapid. Fintech changes very rapid across the globe. To give you an example, crypto is actually a global phenomenon, right? So how do you bring in, or how do you leverage partners from different geographies, their knowledge base? A lot of that is very well welcomed, right? From an employee perspective as well, right? Again, why consulting then? Why do employees get into consulting? Why is it such a hot field? One is, there is an intensely and immensely steep learning curve, right? As an employee, as a consultant, you will actually be working across different industries, different clients through the course of your career, right? You'll be spending a minimum of 2 to 3 months, up to about 6 to 8 months with one client. So you actually get to go in depth, understand about an industry, about a client, and then shift industries as well, right? This is a great thing, and it's actually very quick. The second thing is, again, the brand matters, right? If you look at it within an external industry, consulting is welcome, because as a consultant, your main key skill set is problem solving, right? So a consultant, one, in general, is looked at across different industries as an important skill set, because you've been coming in with the problem solving mindset, right? You come in with a structured thinking. How do you look at a problem? How do you break it down and build a story around the solution, right? And secondly, the brand that you typically work with. Uh, Fortunately, unfortunately, brands play a large role. This is why companies become big, right? And that is why other companies also want you. Uh, a top management consulting firm employee would always be looked at in a positive manner across different firms, right? Uh, yeah, money isn't too bad. Consulting pays well. Obviously, it's a hectic job, but they make sure that they compensate you well for that. They essentially ensure that, look, you're getting paid for the hours you're putting in. So that's not a problem at all, right? Traveling again is a major part of consulting. Pre-COVID would be even bigger. Consultants would actually be flying out every Monday, flying back every Thursday or Friday. That is what your life would typically be. Hop, skip, and jump across cities, across countries, right? A bit muted now, but most firms are getting back to it. And yeah, the work is interesting. I'm not going to talk about the quote unquote well, but yeah, the work is interesting. You'll be working across a lot of different problems, a lot of, I mean, for folks who love strategy, right? Looking at different industries, how do you break that down? There's multiple things that you'll be coming across. Yeah. So just helping everyone understand when we say consulting, again at a broader level, it is, you can term it as very generic, right? Which is, look, we are looking to solve different types of problems. But what are these different problems is again then a question, right? And that is how firms are divided actually into three broad buckets. One would be strategy consulting, the second would be management consulting, and the third is more around the tech consulting or analytics consulting side of things, right? So management consulting firms or players are typically your top firms that you would have heard of, right? That's McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Dalberg. There's a lot of firms that are working on strategy consulting, which the typical problem that you'll be faced with is, okay, let me look at expanding into new market, as I told you, right? What is my go-to-market strategy for that particular landscape? You've told me, all right, let's enter this market, let's enter this geography, let's enter this product. But what is the actual go-to-market that I can take, right? So we build out a go-to-market strategy for that firm. Again, a lot of firms come to us with saying that, hey, uh, either we're looking to acquire a new firm or we're looking to raise funds for us, right? We're looking at different sort of M&A. And this is where we do something called due diligence. We run quick 2 to 3 week pieces. We do due diligence of the industry, of the client. We actually look at whether that asset is a good asset or not to acquire or invest in, right? And the last would be just new product development, right? I'm a shampoo company. We've been making shampoos for the longest time. Do we actually enter bar soaps or not, right? Does it actually sensibly make sense? Uh, I don't know if you guys know, one of the biggest water fitment companies globally, actually within India also, it's a large player, has now entered lighting, right? Typically it seems very odd. They've been doing bathroom fitments. They're a great player in that. How does lighting make sense? But they're actually entering lighting, right? So what are the sort of new products that you should look at? How do you develop that? What is the industry that you should get in, right? The second bucket, as I told you, is management consulting. Your top players here are sort of your big four: Deloitte, KPMG, EY, PwC, right? Again, fairly well-known names. And they would typically work on problems such as saying that, okay, look, we want to evaluate an industry, right? How does that industry typically look like? We are looking at valuation multiples, or we're looking at valuation reporting of these particular firms, these particular industries. How does that work, right? Supply chain optimization are key problems that they would be working on. Org restructuring, again, fairly common problems that a lot of firms come up with. You would think that, okay, why do big firms, which have been in the industry for decades now, right? Why they're looking at org restructuring, why they're looking at different problems of that nature? Because it's a huge transformation exercise. But yeah, these are actually key problems that do come up. How do we relook at things? Because your organization actually directly reflects a lot of your financial metrics as well, right? And the last would be tech and analytics consulting. Again, for a lot of folks who are not interested in strategy, maybe that's not something that gives them a thrill. They are more from a core tech background, right? Tech consulting, analytics consulting is actually a great field. This is where you have firms such as, again, Ceres Associates, IBM, Capgemini. Carney is a great analytics consulting firm as well, right? They are working on core analytical problems. They actually set up analytics dashboards. They look at things in a very objective. They bring in numbers. They look at just evaluating things from that perspective. So it's a very interesting field to be working in, right? Again, the kind of problems that they are looking at is marketing analytics, right? How is my campaign working? How do I look at things on that front, right? So this is a key problem that they're working on there. The second would be, how do you set up a cloud infrastructure, right? Tech consulting, for folks who know, cloud is a huge thing. A lot of companies are being driven to that particular side of things, right? Instead of local data management, push everything to cloud, make it more efficient. How do I make it quicker, right? So what else sort of cloud infrastructure do I look at? How do I push it to things there, right? And again, a very dashboard driven, data driven approach as to how do I look at reporting within my company, right? How do I make it more objective? How do I have these dashboards? These are sort of problems that they work at. Quickly, just looking at a question that Dhruv's posted, between strategy consulting and management consulting, which is challenging and have better exit options. Thanks for the question, Dhruv. Again, it's challenging is a very subjective work, right? Is a very subjective word. I can't say what's more challenging, what's less challenging. Both are very different. It's about what is the sort of problem that you're interested in, what is the sort of nature of work that you want to solve, right? Again, strategy consulting, we do quick pieces. We get in, we build strategies. Like I said, across the board. This is working with management. It's a little different, right? Which also makes it a bit more hectic. So typical consulting hours are actually pushed, right? Your weekly hours, which I'll cover a bit later as well. You'll expect anything north of 50 hours at a minimum and stretching up to 60, 70 hours easily, right? That is sort of a minimum expectation. Management consulting, though solving similar problems, you wouldn't go into as much depth, right? You do an overview, you wouldn't get into as much strategy. Again, ours are higher, but wouldn't be as hectic, as crunched as, let's say, your top management consulting firms, right? So it's a little bit different there. Yeah. So quickly moving on. Thanks, Ankita. So impact consulting would be between strategy and management consulting broadly, right? Impact consulting is also actually a great upcoming firm. Dalberg is a huge player in impact consulting. Bridgespan, which is a sister concern of B&M company, is also a huge player in impact consulting, right? Again, they work on fairly strategic problems. There are defined things that companies come up to them with, right? So it would be within strategy consulting, but a very interesting space to be in for folks who actually like impact as a space, right? It is an amalgamation of doing something great, doing something good. Not that they're not doing good in strategy consulting as well, but actually solving more quality humanitarian problems per se, along with actually strategic problems, right? It's an amalgamation of both, and it's a great field to be in. Yeah. So typically, or sorry, quickly moving on to what's, like I mentioned, right? Pay is an important factor in consulting. How does that particular side of things work? What is your progression within the firm, right? So most firms will have a very similar construct. The roles will be called a little bit different, but the construct in terms of your jumps are very similar. So you'd start at an analyst level, where you do the basic secondary research. You'd actually go out, Google things, look at research reports, industry reports, analyst reports, understand things, and bring in that information, right? A core part of your job is actually helping your associate or your senior associate or consultant build up an answer, right? So that is where you're actually uh, building up or getting a lot of information. These roles are typically post undergraduation itself. So immediate undergraduates would join in with such a role. And the broad range here is about 10 to 15 odd lakhs, right? Again, different firms have it higher, different firms have it lower, but this is broadly the general industry standard at the moment, right? The next career jump for folks would be then an associate, right? This is where your responsibility matures a bit more. You'd be getting more information, but you'd be refining the sort of information that you get. You actually start building up a hypothesis in certain steps, right? Saying that, look, this is what our answer can be. And you bring in a structure after that. These are typically post-MBA roles. More often than not, these are post-MBA roles. But for folks who've actually been, who've joined a company early, right? Yeah, for folks who've joined a company in early, they can actually grow up to this level, right? Again, a doubt that's come up is how can a CA having good academic career get into management consulting, right? CAs are actually brought in at an analyst level at a lot of firms. Even your top management consulting firms are actually looking at CAs. In fact, the firm that I'm working with, we have a CA recruitment drive as well, right? Again, your pedigree matters, the kind of uh, work or studies you've done matters, but yeah, you can actually come in at an analyst level, right? So be on the lookout for job roles, job openings. Companies have been hiring. Again, they've hired a fair few, but there will be more drive. So don't worry about that, right? Just coming back to track, post an associate, you typically go to, again, different firms call it a senior associate, or you call it an actual consultant designation. This is where you are owning what we call an answer, right? So like a firm comes up to us and says that, okay, what are the different geographies that I look at, right? Our initial hypothesis would be, okay, look at Southeast Asia, and within that, look at Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, right? A consultant would actually own one part of the answer, which is saying that, hey, I think you should enter Singapore. These are the reasons why I think you should enter Singapore, right? So this is where you're owning a great bit of that. And your responsibility in terms of actually presenting to the client or engagements with the client, right? Answering the client increase from here on. And this is a fair bit of thrill if this is what a lot of people enjoy, right? This is more of a, like I said, it's a mature role. So this is post MBA, once you've been with the firm for a couple of years, it's a natural trajectory that you will typically have, right? And here the pay scale actually increases. Your pay scale has been going up. It'll be north of 30, 35 lakhs and going up to 40, 45 lakhs as well, right? So that is how it has been pushed up. Again, a question that's come up is an MBA necessary to get into tech consulting? My quick answer is no. Tech consulting is a very different field. They would actually prefer you to have technical skills, right? So again, every firm looks at hiring at entry level, if nothing else, as undergraduates, right? And again, if you worked in an industry for a while, if you build up that skill set, we are actually bringing in laterals for specific roles within management consulting firms as well, right? Just to quickly address that question, is it possible to join as a consultant in MBB? Consulting, okay, has been in a similar consultant role at Big Four. Again, quick answer, yes. Firms are actually bringing in laterals a lot right now. So we've had folks come in from Accenture, from Deloitte into our firms as well at different roles, but that is after you've spent a consultant tenure at, let's say, one of the Big Fours for a while. So that is a trend that you're seeing now. Right. In the interest of time, I'm just going to move ahead quickly. Yeah. Post a consultant, you would actually then become a manager or a senior manager, again, different designations. But this is where you're owning sort of the team. You are interacting with the client on a day-to-day basis. You're getting their requests, their requirements, and you're working on that actual business development, right? On the flip side, you're also working with your team of consultants. We call it work team. So your team of consultants, their analyst associates or junior consultants to build up the answer. And their job is to bring the different pieces of answers together. How do we tie it up? How do we make it a coherent story, right? How does that entire side of things work? And this is, again, the longer you stay within a firm, the longer you come from an industry, you become manager, senior manager. And pay scales here are fairly large, right? 40 to 50 lakhs is sort of the minimum base for management consulting or your top MBBs. This pushes up to a fairly high range, going up to about 80 odd lakhs as well, right? And the next natural step is basically moving on to a partner. This is what your eventual goal with a consulting firm is. You become a partner with.
Okay, you're live. Can you like?
Sorry, folks, I just had a tech issue. I'm hoping I'm on and you can hear me well. This is great. Thank you. Any questions? I think I just missed them. You can just send them back on here. Yeah. So as I was saying, the eventual career goal is to make partner with the firm. That's where you have your practice area, right? That is where you just have deep industry expertise. You build client relationships. You get a share in the profit pool uh, from the overall firm as well. The other take on this slide is MBA a prerequisite to get in strategy consulting? Again, no. The quick answer is no. But pre-MBA roles are very different. You would actually come in at an analyst level. That is how it would typically work. Yeah. the next slide because I have 5 minutes, and then I'll just come back to the questions if time permits. Just to break through into what it takes to come into consulting, because this is a common question that's been coming across the board in terms of doubts or on the chat, right? What we'll be covering as next steps here. So one is you have to create a great CV. A CV or a resume in general for every job is important, but in consult your entire journey, it talks about everything that you've done. It is super important, which is what we'll be walking you through. Consulting firms typically prefer resumes in a particular manner. There is a structure, uh, and this make impact, talks about the impact in the work that you've done, because that is what consultants are looking at. One, what are the sort of problems that you worked on, problems that you solved? Two, how did you go about doing it, right? Second suggestion here is typically go through a referral. Look at people you know within the firm, build a network, and then maybe ask them to refer you. Sorry, folks. Yeah, as I was saying, do not reach out to folks randomly on LinkedIn and tell them refer me because they don't know your professional background. Right. Third step, very important step, is case prep. Sorry, I'm hoping my reception is fine now. Sorry. Yeah. The third step is case prep, which is what we'll be walking you through. Again, super, super important step because that is what your interview is hinging on. Your interviewers will typically give you a case problem, and that is what you'll have to work on solving, right? And two broad routes of, again, getting into a consulting firm, which is what the question that is coming across is, right? One is go to a top tier college, either undergrad or B school, and again, enter the firm. Or the second is be with any other firm, be with any other tech company. I have folks from Google who are within the firm, right? Or be with the top, be with the big four, network your way through, show that you solve problems, and then again come into the firm and grow within there, right? Uh, yeah, what is our typical life? What is our typical project like, right? A quick walk through this. So client, as I said, would come to us with a problem. Uh, this is an initial kickoff meeting that you have, right? You understand the client, what is it that the problem is, what is it that their expectation is, right? How do they expect you to interact? When do they want the answer by? That is the typical thing that they come up with. And the very next step actually is, which is a little hard to wrap your head around, is within the first day or the first couple of days, we form an initial hypothesis about, okay, this is our answer towards their problem, and let us focus on getting backing for this answer, right? That hypothesis forming is something that you gain with time in consulting with a firm, and this is a very crucial step. Like I said, after forming the hypothesis, we go out getting backing information, right? We do primary, we do secondary, we actually conduct expert interviews. We go back to different people within the industry, speak to them, understand how they work, understand how different firms work, right? Bring their answers and actually build up a coherent story to back our answer. Post that, you would actually even just work on your final deliverable, which is presenting a hypothesis, your answer to the clients, right? And the last is actually push them to implementation. This is increasingly asked, that's coming from clients, right? How do you actually go towards implementation? How do you actually, you've told me that this is how you solve the problem. How do we take it into implementation, right? Now help us actually bring to reality what you're talking about, right? And last few questions, which is, yeah, what is our typical life? What is the sort of hours that we can expect? As I mentioned, we're looking at about 50 to 70 hours on a minimum broadly is what it happens for us, right? There is travel, which is broadly reducing. Uh, Post the pandemic, it has been lower, but yeah, that is what the scenario is. Uh, from a stock options or an ESOP perspective, which is typically uh, what is the practice in startups, right? You do not have ESOPs per se, but as you make partner, yeah, this is something that happens with time. Sorry, just a minute, folks. Sure, folks. I think, yeah, just quickly wrapping up, create exit options from consulting firms, from top consulting firms. And last question that keeps coming up is, yeah, an MBA is not a must, right? There are multiple ways to get in, but it is a good thing, right? So I'll quickly, I think we are out of time. Sorry, I couldn't take questions. We might take it at the end of the class. the next step is the resume making process, and that's what I'm going to have Sambhav come in for. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, you are live now. You are live.
Okay, I'm hanging up. Hi everyone. Can Hi everyone, welcome back. Extremely sorry for the glitch on behalf of Career Edge. We were really not sure what happened. Someone ended the class, I believe. But we're happy to have you back, and I hope there are more of us who will continue to join in. In the interest of time, let me begin with this session. So this part of the session will focus on resume making. I'm sure Chiranjeev, in his last session that you attended, would have touched upon resume making in one of the steps for you to get through to consulting. Let me take a minute here to stress upon how important this step is. So, a resume making act and the shortlist is, in my opinion, the most important step in this entire journey because you cannot skip this step. If you don't make it through the shortlist, there is no way you can proceed ahead in the funnel and make it to the firm of your choice within consulting. So CV shortlist is the most important step also because if you look at it from a probability perspective, almost everyone in the school that you will be applying from will end up applying to consulting, most of them. However, the shortlist will only come to about 10 to 15% of those who apply. However, once you get shortlisted, the probability for you to convert into an offer becomes 50%. So the only difficult part is for you to cross this bridge first, which is CV shortlist, and then your hand held for the rest of the process, which lasts about 2 months, and we will speak about it later in the upcoming sessions. So that becomes easier. The first step of a CV shortlist is the most critical, and it also is in fact low effort. Why? Because like you would know, you would have prepared some draft of your resume up till now. It is essentially a summary of what you've done up till now. It's a reflection of who you are in encapsulating all your professional and beyond professional accomplishments in a piece of paper. That's all about it. It doesn't ask you to do anything further, take a task up, prove yourself in something else. It's just a summary of what you've done up till now. So it's a very easy task to do. Everything that you've done, put it together on a paper and let it go through to the CV shortlist process. So it's low effort, high impact for you to invest your time in resume. And once you convert it, then your chances of making it to the firm become immensely high. So defining it, I'm sure everyone, like I said, would have a draft ready by now. So you know that it just summarizes what your achievements have been, the highlights of your personal, professional, educational work experience that has been there up till now. What are the different types of resumes? So essentially, you can divide it into two parts. One is chronological, and the other is a functional resume. Diving deep into each, chronological, as the name suggests, is a CV that is organized in order of date of the events being happen. So if you notice on the right hand side, and also notice the format of how it is presented and how easy it is to read and follow timelines, on the right hand you see all the dates. And what you also notice is from top to bottom is the order of recency, right? So you see June 20 to present is right up there. Then there's 15 to 18, and then there's 13. So this is one way of organizing your resume. Do not think about content right now. This is just talking about how you organize your CV. One method is taking the chronological route to it. You put everything with respect to how it occurred in time. And the second is functional resume. So you, in your previous years, would have seen yourself grow in different functions. So as you see in the example, there's a bucket for strategy, there's one for operational management, and there's one for financial planning. So when you go through your own resume, the points that you've put together, you realize that there are certain skills you want to portray, and there are certain skills that you've exhibited over the past few years. So why not club them into different segments so that they come across as a specific message that you want to convey? Having said that, between chronological and functional, there is no right answer. Ideally, it should be a mix of both. It should always follow chronological order. But if you can bucket your experience within functional expertise, it is always advisable to do that so that you can upfront showcase what you're good at, what you've accomplished, and how that ties up with the consulting job that you're aspiring for. So the right answer between these is a hybrid to follow a chronological and functional. If you can, do not force functional expertise in this format if it doesn't come across. You don't have to make a section and leave just one bullet in it, right? You have to be smart in it. You have to see if there are meaty sections that can come out from your resume. In that section, only then make a section. Do not make it for the sake of just having 3 sections and showcasing these functional expertise. So you need to take a very subjective and personal call on that. Going forward, so before I touch on this, the next few slides will talk about 3 essential topics within resume making. One is, how do you structure the resume? Second is, how do you format your resume, formatting guidelines, things to take care of. And third is getting into the actual content. What are the do's and don'ts for the content that you're actually putting it line by line, and what do we suggest from our experience that has worked well for us. Beginning with the structure, essentially what we've seen is, and by the way, you would have read, I'm from McKinsey, so we've done a lot of this, and we've mentored a lot of folks like you. So what we've noticed is that there is a certain pattern of organizing your resume in a certain structure, which follows 3 parts: education, work experience, and extracurriculars. Now, again, this is not the right answer always. You have to take a personal call to it, whether it suits your work or not. But this is recommended because there is a certain way in how the evaluators see your resume. It's very clear. They've been reading a lot of resumes, so they know that पहला section education है, फिर work ex है, फिर extracurricular है, और इतनी जगह तीनों में divided है. They're rating you like that, so they're used to a certain pattern. It's good to give them that pattern on a plate so that it's easy for them to consume your resume. Also, another point of importance is, what is the sectional divide in each of these sections within your resume? So is it a 30-30-30? Is it like a 20-60-20 divide? How do you answer that is, take the lens of your work experience, which is the most important component. If you have had for a benchmark, let's say more than 4 years of experience, a ballpark that I would say is, give around 60% of the real estate to this section, because this is where you've actually, in a practical sense, showcased your skills and gained impact for the firm that you've worked for. So it is important to show this section really crisp and out there. So if you have about 4 years of experience, put around 60% here and then divide the 20-20 across the other 2. If you're a fresher, you've just done a couple of internships, you're yet to take a full-time job, then you can probably have a division of equal division of 30 each. So answer this question by answering work experience first. If you have enough meat to talk about work experience, give it more space, and then divide the rest based on what is important to showcase within your education and extracurriculars. Second is the formatting part of it. So these are some tips and tricks that we've noticed. While you keep the font at 12, or at max crunch it to 11, not smaller than that, there is no right answer for the exact font that you pick. So it could be Arial, Calibri, Georgia, anything that you think makes your CV look neat. So how do you qualify the font? Is by answering the question, does my CV look neat or not? What you should also do is leave enough blank spaces, yet make sure that your resume doesn't have a lot of white spaces in it. So you need to make sure there's line spacing in it. You need to make sure the line spacing is uniform, there's word spacing, there's enough margins being left. But at the same time, you do not want a third of your resume or even 1/4 of your resume looking blank. If you're doing that, you're not optimizing the real estate. You only have one page to put all your resume pointers out there. So you cannot afford to lose any real estate, but that does not mean that you make it untidy. Uh, Answering the question on the chat, is it compulsory to make a one-pager resume? Yes, it is, and especially for a fresher, right? मतलब fresher में कितना ही डाल लोगे तुम एक पेज से ज़्यादा भी. There are people with, like the example also says, people who've had like 10, 15 years of glorious experience, right? And they have books to write upon their experience, yet they are able to put it concisely in one page. So yes, you should do it. And why you should do it is to make the job of the evaluator easy. If you are giving it 2 pages, you're just multiplying the time of the evaluator on you, which is not ideal, right? They will not want to spend so much time. They only have about 30 seconds to scan through a resume. If it catches interest, they read it further. So optimize it for yourself. Make it one page, and one page will, if you force yourself to stick it to one page, then automatically all the highest impact pointers will come out. Then you will easily filter through कि मेरे पास तो जगह इतनी ही है. So what do I do if my pointers are overflowing? Which is more important, the point that is at the bottom or the point that I can replace it with ऊपर? Then you will weigh point by point कि जगह इतनी है. Does this make me look better, or is there another pointer? So easily you start filtering out the pointers that are not as important. You also start making your bullets very concise. So another suggestion is that your pointer should be bulleted, and each bullet should hopefully not go into the second line. Try and complete every bullet in one line. Do not make it overflow into the next line. And that comes with practice. Spend a lot of time on every bullet. Try and make it concise. You do not have to be verbose. You have to be really concise while speaking your accomplishments out. And you can do it with time. Uh, okay, going forward. This is the content part of it. So how do you choose the right words? How do you frame your sentences? What are the best practices around there? So if you notice on the right hand side, there's something called the RAC format, which we highly recommend. Again, because ये ऐसा नहीं है कि this is a thing and you have to do for it to be a successful CV. It's just because it makes it easier for the evaluator to see what you've done and how you've achieved it. Explaining it further, RAC stands for result, action, and context, which means that if you have one line, a one line bullet, how you break it is the first part talks about the result that you've achieved. The second part explains the action that you did to achieve that result. And the third part puts the context together. So to give you an example, improved process efficiency by 10% by building an AI model, collaborating with 10 different stakeholders. That's a complete sentence that's very concise, that tells the evaluator that, okay, you were able to achieve that 10% delta by building something that was breakthrough, that was something that you did by yourself. And in that context, you worked with 10 different teams as well. So this again will come with practice. You have to question it, question yourself while building every line. A quick method to check yourself against RAC is that once you've put your resume together, just divide your page vertically into 3 halves and read the first half vertically top to bottom. It should ideally have all numbers and results. Again, so I'm not saying that your every bullet should have a number attached to it, but whatever result you achieved, it should reflect in the first third of your vertical section in the resume. The second third should mention all the actions, and the third is any additional context you want to provide to the evaluator. So that's how you put everything together. It's great to boast about yourself, and I recommend everyone boast about yourself till the time you are in the limits of being honest. Stretch yourself to think at as maximum as possible. I always tell this to everyone, that what you've seen as your work is limited by what you think you've achieved. Talk to people around you. Try and see what the end goal is. So let's just take this example itself, right? Improve process efficiency by 10%. Sit on it for a week and ask yourself, okay, I improved process efficiency by 10%. What did it mean for the company at large? Improving process efficiency multiplied my top line by tenfold. So take a step further, mention that. It's completely honest. Your actions and your process efficiency derived those results out for the company. So scratch this and write accomplished 10x growth in 3 months by improving process efficiency by 10%. Yeah. So be honest in what you want to convey, but do stretch yourself. You will be faced with a lot of competition, so you do not want to undermine what you've already achieved. Any questions on RAC? Any questions on how to set the content right? If anyone is struggling with a sentence, for example, feel free to drop it in, and I'm happy to make it into an RAC format or make it better for you. Any questions? Anyone up till now? Okay, so I see, I think a bunch of you are freshers. So like I said, if you do not have WorkX, it is not necessary for you to put that 1/3 of the section completely WorkX, but yes, it is important for you to showcase some practical experience. WorkX does not mean that you have worked in a full-time professional setup. WorkX means avenues where you've showcased practical application of your skills. How you can showcase that is you could have done some internships, you could have done some freelance, you could have done some pro bono assignments while studying. So find avenues where you would have, and you, if you step back and think about it, you would have supported your dad, for example, in their business. You would have taken up a freelance assignment to support someone. You could have built a research paper in your educational institute, which would have been published, or you would have worked to gather data to build that out. So I'm sure in your journey, you would have these nuances where you would have showcased your skills. Put that together in the WorkX. They only want to check your practical application of skills. That's it. Oh, yes. I would actually not recommend answering Saudagar's question. Listing your core skills. So in traditional CVs, you would have noticed that there's a section where people write that I know how to dance, sing, make presentations, I'm good at modeling, excelling, etc., etc. I would suggest against this. In spite of being explicit about it and mentioning that you have these skills, find a way to display those skills through your work. So if your work bullet says that you worked with 10,000 data fields to mine the data and and make an AI model out of it, it automatically tells me that you have that Excel proficiency. You have those skills in it. So find examples and illustrations to convey the skills that you have and not explicitly mention it. It builds a lot of credibility than you just simply going out and saying that you have these 10 skills. Um, okay, let me just complete the section that I have and I'll take the questions. You would have heard about spikes in your resume. What does this mean is within your class or within the section that is applying, how do you stand out from the rest of the crowd? It is not absolute, it is completely relative. Um, you would have, it does not, an educational spike does not always mean that you have to be the top 1 percentile or you need to be promoted twice as fast. What it means is in your circle. What is it? You could have been a national tennis player. You could have you could be a national swimmer. You could have participated in Olympiads and gotten medals. You could have served the Indian Army at the border at a very critical location. So how do you stand out? In COVID, for example, you went out and served 100 people with an interesting model that you built. So find ways in each of those scenarios where you can use
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. How do I switch off the camera from here? Like,
Okay, hi. Can you hear me, guys? I hope I'm So welcome to the masterclass, and I'm so sorry for the glitches earlier. Quick introduction about myself. I am Archit Maheshwari. I work for Boston Consulting Group. Uh, with that, I'm also the and I'm here to talk to you about guesstimates. Now, guesstimates are a very important part in your consulting journey in the sense that they will be part interview rounds. They will be parts of your interactions with the partners, right? So it's super important that you know about the importance of solving a guesstimate correctly, right? So that is one thing that you should never ever compromise on. Much weight. I will move ahead, right? So I think a very first level definition of guesstimate is when I break it down into simple at an estimate for a consulting problem statement. Now that doesn't have to be a consulting problem statement, honestly. It can be any problem statement, right? Could be guesstimate the number of flights leaving an airport, guesstimate the particular destination, guesstimate the demand for, let's say, uh, gluten-free pizza, etc., etc. Right? So could be any problem. Doesn't really have to be consulting, but the idea is that you arrive at an estimate. Now that's the more sort of very simple definition. But when you look at it in a little more nuance, how is it related to consulting? It is used by consulting firms to test rationale and structure. Rationale in the sense how much surroundings in general, and how much can you use your common sense. That's one, right? That's one basis for your rationale. Two, how much can you apply general bits. So rationale essentially is of two components. One is common sense, two is business principles that you studied. Okay, so super important that your rationale covers both of it. Obviously, structure in the sense that you know how you structure your guesstimate will be super important. I'll come to structuring in let's say around 5 minutes. But yeah, that skill that they are looking for, rationale and structure. And then another thing that they are looking for is how quickly can you think on spot, because your guesstimate is given to you on spot, right? So how quickly can you work at math, right? Simple calculations. They don't want you to do complex calculations in the sense that 78 into 4.28%. No, that's not going to be what they are looking for. Is okay, can you do, if 78 into 4.28% roughly equal to 80 into 4%, can you do that quickly on spot, right? That is what they are looking for. And how you communicate, that is another very crucial important element. How is it that you express what you're trying to communicate, what you're trying to structure? Okay, so that's another very important thing that uh, consulting firms look for when they solve guesstimates with you, right? What are the top evaluation parameters? The top evaluation parameters, three very structure, which is how are you breaking down your guesstimate? How are you arriving at what you're supposed to estimate, right? So that's super important. Next, basic math skills, obviously, quick math skills, percentages, ratios, etc., right? So that is also something that they are looking to get. And then there is communication. Okay, so how do you communicate? How are you presenting your ideas? That will be super swarm. The most important criteria for a guesstimate, right? So there's structure, there's and math skills actually also includes a little bit of rationale. So rationale is a key component, and then there's communication. Okay, super important. Now, you're an active, etc. I would like you to grab a piece of pen and a paper, right? And then I don't think we'll have enough time to talk through it. But yeah, if possible, is it possible for people to raise hands and speak up? Let the organizers check on that. But yeah, in case, why don't we take 2 minutes, try and think out. Even if we are not able to communicate, let's write down this question, which is estimate the number of schools in Delhi. Take 3 to 4 minutes to pen our approach, how we would go about estimating this. And remember, I think by the time you think, very important to remember is the fact that there is no one right answer. Okay, guesstimates will have multiple right answers. The answer is it's 3000 or 3100, or for that matter 3500. That is not the objective. The objective of the guesstimate is not to arrive at the correct number. It is to one testing at the number is super critical. Whether you've taken the right factors, whether you've taken the right structure, that is super important answer in itself. So just take 2 minutes, write down your thoughts. Meanwhile, I'll just check if people can speak up, and would be happy to hear an idea from the audience. And if not, we'll begin. Okay. Guys, is anyone able to speak up? Maybe if you want to tell me what your approach is. And again, remember, there's no one right approach. Is there a possibility of people raising hands and speaking up? Okay, I don't think there is to see any raised hands. Is what? Okay, now I can see. Okay, so Harsh says population, kids population, average number of kids in the schools, and then number of schools. Yeah, possible approach. Goes to school, says Ashok. Now remember, guys. Actually, we go on and solve. Okay, let's keep our approaches. I think we have some good approach, but let's keep our approaches for to ourselves right now. Like I said, there's no one right approach, right? So whatever I am going to share is not the only approach that you can use. What matters is, one, how you structure the approach, what rationales you apply on that approach, and two, how you communicate, right? So now see, there are a few nuances that you should always question for. Okay, number of schools am I talking about? Public, private, both, right? I don't have clarity on that. Okay, so does Delhi include Delhi NCR maybe, which at a lot of times is included when you look at various things? Does it not? So there are things you should always clarify, right? Clarify solving for a problem that really required one level deeper analysis. For example, here the easiest thing could have been, okay, you know, hey, you guys would have solved for total number of private schools. So it is your job to understand what you are solving for. As a consultant, when you're at the client side, some statements might be vague, some statements might be, so then what do? Then what you need to know is what exactly are you solving for? So for you in this situation, it is to understand what type of school am I looking for. Is it primary? Is it secondary? Is it higher secondary? Is it all? Is it government? Is it private? What exactly are you solving for? Right? Super, super important, guys. Always remember, it is your job to make your life easy. The client will never make your life easy. Ensure that you make your life easy, and the best way to make your life easy is to know exactly what problem you're solving for. Okay, and the best way to understand what question you're solving for is asking the right questions and aligning on them with the client, with your stakeholders. So when you're given this question on your interview, it is super important that you understand what nuances could be in there and account for them. Okay, do that. Now, in this case, for example, the question that I wanted was, or that I have framed it for, is obviously all types of schools, government across all classes, which is KG to 12. Now, there could be preschoolers also. Okay, so then there could be a pre-KG, lower LKG, and UKG, and whatever. So we will exclude. Okay, but we look at classes KG to 12, which is your 13 years of education, and we will not look at anything below that, and obviously there are no schools. We move ahead. Now, again, what I'm going to talk about is a very, very sample, or is one of the approaches. The approach, the answer that you get is not the only answer. So I will also take you through, when I'm going through each of the drivers, and I will take you through what is it that can work. Okay, that is okay, even though it's not what I have taken. Okay, so that's super. Again, you could use a top-down approach here, as many of you have already suggested. Take Delhi population, break it down, right? Break it down and then see, okay, where is it dying? Now, obviously, see, for you, it is super important to understand that government schools and private schools will be very different in nature of average number of students that are there, right? So it is very, very important for you to understand that government school is a nuance. A lot of us might just know the government school nuance, might forget, right? And that takes our calculations for a toss. And even if it doesn't take our calculus, very, very likely that the partner or our interviewer is likely to penalize us for not taking careful consideration. Super, super important that one, you clear your thing, and you clear your approach, you clear your answer and realize what, and then you find out the factors responsible for this. Now, here what I've done is Delhi population excluding NCR. So the answer only was for Delhi, not NCR, right? So you don't, could be approximately 3 crore. It's absolutely fine even if you take 2 crores, right? So it's completely fine. Again, 2 ho ya 3 hai doesn't matter. 2 ka 20, or you don't make 2 ka 30 or 3 ka 30, right? That magnitude should not, your population should not be 20 crores, 30 crores, right? That is important. About 2 का 3 हो रहा है, that is completely fine. That is not something you will be penalized on for your guesstimate. Always remember that. Now, see 25% split of school going age. Now, how have I arrived at that 25% split will be super important. You cannot just randomly say, okay, let's assume 20. What is, happening. Now, what I've done here is simply taken life expectancy to be 60. If life expectancy, now, in a city like Delhi, okay, it will not be 60. It will be maybe 70 or maybe 75. Now, what you can do is call that out and take life expectancy, and that will be fine. I am telling you, just to make calculations easy, even if you take 60, you will not be penalized as long as you justify how have you arrived at that 25% and 90%. If I take life expectancy to be 60, and if I assume people to be uniform across all ages, now I know that's a wrong assumption because India likely to be more young people as compared to old people. But for calculation's sake and the fact that you mentioned that there is a uniform distribution, it conveys to the know that the distribution is what you take a look at. Okay, a lot of people will miss the distribution aspect completely. You can, India suffers or India has a good demographic dividend, and hence there are a lot more younger people. But for the purpose of this calculation, I will take it as a unification across ages. The moment you mention that, you have cleared the interviewer of doubts that this person will miss the distribution. Not every uniform, right? This is just for this particular case. So it is super important. Now here what I have done is 3 to 18, right? You're typically, now 3 to 18, you can argue it's 4, that people start classes KG from 5, 4 or 5. That's okay, and that's totally up to you. That's not going to change anything dramatically. But what is super important is that 25% split school going age 3 to 18. Yes, Dhruv, this is the supply side. After I conclude with going through the solution, but yeah, 3 to 18 is 15 years ka age gap, right? My life expectancy is 60. I've assumed a uniform distribution, which means I expect gaps to be equal, which means people in 1 year of age will be equal to people in 60 years of age, which means for 15 for a span of 15 years, entire population divided by 4, because 60 is my entire age range, right? 0 to 60 is my age range. There are uniform people across, which means, and pick out number of people from the age of 3 to 18, then it will be 25% of the total population, which I have assumed ki 60 tak rehti hai. Is, like I said, you can contest the assumptions. And assumptions, I can contest your assumptions also. That's not a challenge. The other person is not there to contest, is there to ensure that you are objective about your assumptions. You communicate that, you could also take this or you could also take this. I am using this just for the sake of ease of calculation. That's roughly 80 lakh. Now what I do is 80 lakh. This is 3 to 18 years. Now we know that the school, that in India or in Delhi for that matter, the population split will be, now India income split will be 20, 30, 50. You can argue that it can be instead of, lower people can be, let's say, a different number, could be 40, and it's okay. The idea is that you do not, what do I mean by magnitude? See, income is a very important determinant here. Now, we all know that higher income will be 20%, 10%, 30%, depend, overall, matlab India mein more or less इसी range में होगा, right? So very important, doesn't doesn't change the fact a lot that if you want to take 20 ki jagah 15 or 20 ki jagah 25 for high income, you can. This income distribution in India is this, and if I were to pick Delhi, Delhi is slightly creamer, and it's obviously more richer because it's a city, it's the capital. A few like a higher proportion of rich people. So instead of 20, it will be 25. You can absolutely go and say that, but that is the point. You cannot go from 20 to 40% log high income mein honge. That is not true. That is not true for anywhere in India, right? So super important that you get this segregation on point in terms of magnitude. Even 20, like if it's okay if it's not 25 but 20 or 20 but not 25. It's completely okay. But do not get the magnitude wrong in the sense that 20 ka 40 mat kar de per interview. Okay. Now, what we've done is, again, we've taken 100%, we've taken 80% and 50% as the school going population ka proportion. Now, why I will focus on education, spend on education, more or less everyone is going to send their kids to school. Again, a decent enough assumption. You might find exceptions. उसको लेके ये मत बोलना कि एक बच्चे को मैं जानता हूँ जो school fine, but even if you do not use that as a basis. More or less 100% people will go to school. Now 80% for medium, because again, they are like most of them go to school. Some of them may not, and 50% because low income people put in their children as laborers, put in their children to earn additional income, etc. etc. Above 50 ka 40 bhi le lo will not be a big challenge. Is us 50 ka 10 mat kar dena because that might be a little too far fetched. ठीक है, उसके बाद वो किया, ठीक है. Now what we've done is we've also taken a gender split here, which 70% of we've taken a gender split here, 70% and 50% into 30%, which is your male to female. I think now the male to female ratio is 51-49 in favor of females. So that is okay. You can call that out and you can use that, but it's completely okay, right, guys? So there are a few, but it is very important that you get those out of the way by talking them through, right? So now school going population roughly for high income segment you will get 50, medium segment you will get roughly 20 lakhs, and 20 lakhs as government schools. Okay. Now what I have done is estimated students per school. Again, you can say that this has 5 sections, not students, not 50 students. Completely okay, right? So that is completely okay. But yeah, this is the standard assumption that I have taken. Feel free to question it. Feel free to change it. This is just ensure that the number is more or less in the ballpark, because 5 into 12 into 50. That is students per school 3,000. That sounds reasonably okay, right? So that 3,000 should not be कि अच्छा ये तो 10,000 आ रहा है. That 3,000 should not become 10,000. That 3,000 can become 4,000. That 3,000 can become 2,000. That's completely okay. Now, next thing is students per school roughly 3,000. These are all private schools. In government schools, what we notice is there are 5 sections. 6 standards. Why we have taken is because government schools typically are till, again, you can question that class 9, 10, 11, 12 भी होती है बहुत सारे government schools में. We can talk about people, a mass chunk drops out of schools after class 8. They are working somewhere, कुछ और कर रहे हैं, पढ़ नहीं रहे हैं, etc. etc. So which is why you can debate on that number, but it's complete. Okay, so 3,900 is what we arrive at. We divide that by the total school going population, 500, 700, 2250, roughly 3,450 schools. Now that 3,450 schools is we 3,000 as well, could be 4,000 as well, could be 3,500 as well, could be 4,500 as well. That's okay. But this 3,500 schools roughly cannot be 15,000, 20,000 or 1 lakh schools. वो नहीं हो सकता. So keep that thing in mind. It's completely okay if your answer is 4,000. It's completely okay if your answer is 3,000. Completely. Now this is the supply side. As Dhruv has mentioned in his chat, would be demand side, wherein I simply use, instead of using student via number of students who are eligible to go to school, and from that take out how many go to school. That would be the demand side. Okay. Now, why I use the supply side approach is simple, because is not. Demand side will not include constraints like that supply has, because in India school supply is limited, right? उतने schools ही नहीं है जितने होने चाहिए. Fact. So feel free to use whichever side of approach you want to use. Uh, but yeah, remember guys, you are paid, or you are given marks not for arriving at 3,500 as your answer. You arrive at 3,500 as your answer with absolutely no logic at all, you will not clear your interview. I think just wanted to solve a big guesstimate with you guys. We will move on to the next session, for which I will invite Anurag to come in. Yeah, all the best for that session, guys. That will be a case interview sort of session. I hope you guys will enjoy it. Meanwhile, do think about career edge, etc., etc. When you think about preparation, feel free to reach out to us in case you have any doubts, clarifications. I know this was a shorter version. We have not gone into as much detail as we would like to, but I still hope that you could get some insights. Feel free to log into Career Edge, see what is up there, and we could talk about a lot. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Anurag will be joining in too, guys. So just wait. It will be a case interview session, and Anurag will take you through what a case is like, the interviews. So all of that will be super important for you guys to take that into account. And yes, it will be an interesting session for sure. Um I hope. I mean, I apologize for the technical glitches that have happened today. Uh, we hope to sort this out. Next time, we hope it will be a lot better. And yeah, but hopefully things from now on will flow smoothly. And we'll be joined by Anurag in around. What do you think can help improve it?
Yep, sure. And Yeah, let me mute it first. 1 second. Yeah, I'll take care of it. Thanks. I'll do it. Hey guys, are you able to hear me? Okay. Thanks, Shivangi, Radhika, Suraj. Perfect. So yeah, I think this is where I know you had like a guesstimate session with Archit. And sorry, guys, we're also like trying to figure out a way across the platform as well. Feel free to ask me any question in general, just to give you like a super brief introduction. Hi guys, this is Anurag. I'm the co-founder at Career Edge. I am an ISP alum. I'm working as a senior strategy consultant with Albert Advisors. So it's like a top tier impact consulting firm that majorly purely does pure play advisory. So feel free to ask me any questions with respect to impact consulting or anything in general. I know there have been certain glitches, so but apologize for that. Really apologize for that. But let me get started and feel free to. I hope I'm assuming the raise hand option could work, and so try that out, or else feel free to write any questions in the chat and be happy to answer them. Okay, perfect. What we are going to do is we are going to do a live case. Technically, the way it works is I generally have like some other consultant with me doing a live case with me, but because we're doing it the first time, what I'll do is I'll give you guys a question, and we'll try if you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. So let's try to do that. I've enabled raising hands. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise hand and let's see how it works out. Awesome. So see, case interviews is, I know Sambhav talked about, Chiranjeev talked about in general what consulting is. Sambhav talked about resumes. Akshay talked about guesstimates, and I'm going to talk about case interviews, right? Case interviews is like the most critical thing when it actually comes to your interview round in cracking a consulting firm. People generally do like a month or two practice, just like a couple of months practicing only case interviews. So the objective of the session is to just tell you what is expected, what's the case interview like, and let's try to do a live case, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, awesome. So what's a case interview, right? So case interview, first of all, taking a step back, case interview, if you like doing case interviews, you will actually really like consulting. If you hate case interviews, then you'll not like consulting, right? So what's a case interview? Three things, simple, right? It's actually a super micro simulation of how your consulting job would look like. This is, and the kind of question that I am going to give you in a live case interview technique is also the kind of question that we consultants get. And we just stretch it out over a couple of months, go far deeper, but it's a condensed form of simulation wherein you, the interviewer actually is your client. So think of him or her as a CXO. No audio. Guys, you're not able to hear me? Can someone just write in the chat? Yes, you are able to hear me. Awesome. So I think something's off with you, Ashok. Okay. So yeah, interviewer is actually, think of him or her as a CXO, and you guys are like the interviewee. That's like a condensed simulation. Second is it's a simple business problem. Yeah. The business problem could be as simple as let's say your career edge and you want to scale 10x in the next 1 year. It could be as, or it could be as complicated as, especially in impact consulting, things, it could be as complicated as you want to increase the vaccination rate in India, right? So again, different types of business problem solutions. What are they really looking out for is how well you're able to diagnose a problem and suggest some decent amount of solutions, right? Nobody can really solve a case in an hour. If that were the case, consultant wouldn't be getting paid so much, and we won't be doing like 2 to 3 month long projects. So it's an idea. We're just trying to see whether you're a good problem solver or not. Why do they really take case interviews, and what are they really trying to do, right? 4 things. One is problem solving, and by problem solving, again, they generally try to check your quant skills in the guesstimate section, which Archit would have already covered. When problem solving, I mean, if I give you a broad problem, right? Increase vaccination in India. Let's say increase vaccination in, I'm staying in Mumbai, so Mumbai, right? Now, how do I break this up? Why is there low vaccination in Mumbai, right? Probably people are not aware about it, or people are aware about it, but probably vaccine is not available, or vaccine is available, but probably people are not using it, right? So they're looking of this sort of structured thinking, and that's what they talk about problem solving. Second is, and problem solving structuring is very, very common. Second is, consultant love this word, which is called MECE, which is mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive, right? Now, when they talk about structuring, you can look at this example, right? Wherein, what do you want to eat for dinner? I want to eat in, I want to eat out. Those are like the two things, right? If I combine them, they'll create your universe. Within eat in, do I want to cook at home? Do I want to take out? Or do I want to go and do delivery? Again, when you combine these three, it's the entire exhaustive universe. So they're trying to see if you're able to structure this problem or not. It's very similar to what I did with the vaccination rate, right? Third is when they're talking about recommendations, right? Now, vaccination rate is low in India. I can't go ahead and let's develop some ML solutions which give automatic WhatsApp messages to people. That probably doesn't work out, right? Because so many people still they don't have WhatsApp, right? They're looking for practical solutions which would work out. And fourth thing is comms, right? Now, communication doesn't mean you have to be a brilliant speaker. It just means that you need to be smart enough to clearly articulate what you're thinking in your mind, right? Because at the end, they're going to put you in front of CEOs, chairmen, and you are representing the firm, right? So you better think, speak, and just not blabber, right? That's what they're looking for. What's the typical flow, right? So typical flow generally consists of six things, right? The first thing is you define a business situation, right? So for me, COVID happened in 2019. Vaccination rate was going pretty good, but now it has just stalled, let's say 60-70% for the second dose, right? That's the business situation. Second is to identify the type of question this is, right? So for me, this sort of a case is probably a root cause analysis sort of a case, right? So you identify which type of case type this is. And there are generally different types of case types, and we'll talk about one of them in the live one. Third is your scope, right? Scoping is, think of scoping as a kickoff call with your client, right? Wherein you're trying to understand that, okay, you're trying to solve for vaccination in Mumbai. Are there any very particular regions in Mumbai that you're targeting? By what do you mean by vaccination rate? Is it first dose, second dose, right? So your scoping questions are, you take like 4 to 5 questions which are there at the top of your head, just so that you understand the problem very, very clearly. Moving on, the fourth thing is structuring the case. As I said, right? Why vaccination? People are not aware, people are aware, but people don't have access, people have access, but people don't want to use it. People want to use it, people don't want to use it. So I'm structuring this out, right? That's the fourth thing. And fourth thing is extremely important, probably the most important thing in your case interview. Fifth is you identify key insights, right? Once you structure the case, once you talk with the interviewer, you identify, okay, because of these 3 or 4 major reasons, vaccination rate is not there in Mumbai, right? Probably it's awareness in the slums. Probably that's one insight that you get out of the conversation, right? Sixth is you close and you recommend, right? By closing is you summarize the case, you talk about this is what we did, this is what the business problem. It's like an exec summary to the CEO, and you provide very, very clear recommendations, right? So those are generally 6 phases of a case interview. Um, all the phases are important. If you're not able to identify which case type it is, you're probably just going out all wrong. If you're not able to understand business situation, see, nobody has, I am doing cases as a consultant on climate, agriculture, education, right? I'm not an expert on all of these, but I am smart enough to understand what is the exact business problem that we are trying to solve, right? So all these steps are exclusive, are super, super important. If I were to bet my life on one, it's like the fourth thing, which is structuring the case. And guys, again, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Happy to answer them as you like. Okay, let's start with a business problem right now, right? Let's say this is the business problem, right? Your client is a conglomerate. Its third quarter's profits in FY 16-17 were low. It needs your help to figure out what's really off with this, right? Now, generally I do a live case with probably like Archit or Sambhav, and we discuss how an interview is really going to go on. But because this is like a demo version of the class, I'll try to play around as the interviewer and I'll ask you this question, right? The the moment I ask this question, let's say if there were 3 to 4 questions that come to your mind, what would those questions be? Uh, Feel free to raise your hand, um, or feel free to ask in chat or type them in chat basically. This is the problem statement. Which sort of questions would you ask? What is coming to your mind? Okay. So Srivastava says, which industry? Great question. It's a conglomerate. I've not even talked about which industry this is. Great question to ask. Harsh's question was, is it related to business cycle? If it were related to business cycle, Harsh, the client wouldn't come to you, right? He probably already know that because of business cycles. Why should I really come to a consultant? There is something off, right? How low? Great question. Very, very amazing question, Saudagar. Low could be anything, right? Low could be, oh, for me 5% is low. For someone 50% is low, right? Great question to ask. Is this particular dip in this quarter? Again, very, very good question to ask, Prateek. Great, amazing questions, folks. Anything else that comes to your mind, right? I have never questioned about the revenue stream and the cost heads. Supriya, that sort of question is good, but when you just talk about scoping question, right? Scoping questions is like those broad, high-level questions that you want to ask, right? Those sort of super detailed questions would come in as we generally deep dive into the case. Industry-wide problems since how many years this was observed? Great question, Dhruv. Very, very relevant questions. Dipanshu's question was, do you have any step which was innovative when you compared? Interesting question, Dipanshu. Sadly, you'll not be able to get, again, this is a question when we actually structure the problem, not right now. You may not be able to get answer to this. Is market in general down or special to us? Okay, amazing question, folks. Let me just try to, if I were a consultant, if I were, let's say, I was solving this case, and how I kind of solve this case is 3 to 4 broad questions, right? Which you guys already asked. Question number 1 is, what do you mean by conglomerate? Which industry this is, right? The answer to that question is, think of conglomerate as in ITC, something like an ITC, right? So you know the huge conglomerate, majorly FMCG goods, sells everything from chips to cigarettes to everything, right? Small, fast-moving goods. That's the answer. Second question is, probably I would ask, like, if your profits are down, where are you based out of, first of all, right? I didn't really ask about where you're based out of. And if your profits are down, where are they down? Do you really know a particular geography or something? So this, my answer as an interviewer is, I'm based out of India, and it's fairly common, right? It's across the board. So I don't have any particular region. Guys, this is super important because if that was in any particular region, we can really talk about certain regional factors, which we'll not because it's an overall problem, right? Third question would be, what do you mean by low, right? What do you mean by low? That for me is 25%, right? So make sure whenever an interviewer is giving you these numbers, right, 25%, note it down because that's a very key, interesting data point that you have gotten, right? Third question is this like a cyclic business or not? To me, again, it's not a cyclic business. It's a fairly normal business. And by third quarter, I mean the third quarter of the business cycle, which is October, November, December, right? Now, once you have scoped this question as an interviewee, I have noted, okay. And okay, the fourth question is, the last question is are only you getting this sort of an issue, or is it also other people? Give me a second. Yeah. Now to me, for that, the interviewer responds that great question. And we have seen that our competitors are also facing a similar thing. Although our profits are have taken a much lower hit, much greater hit than theirs, right? So now okay, the competitors are also facing this, right? Now you can think about probably this is something could be a macro problem as well, right? If it were only my problem, then everybody would not be facing it, right? The moment I get this, I know, like with respect to suppliers, costing, and all those sort of issues would not be there, right? So I've gathered some sort of data into my head as an interviewee. Now the thing is, and I also know, right, the type of case. It's a simple profitability case, right? And guys, there are like 6 to 7 types of cases. Uh, Sets or substitutes, new entrants, always good, Dhruv, and we'll discover what really goes on that. It could be like a new player has come in which is eating away all the share. Could be that, and we'll talk about it. Now, once I've scoped these questions, right, and I know there are 6, 7 types of frameworks, and this to me looks like a normal profitability case, right? Profits are down. Now, I know we have not talked about case frameworks, but a profitability case is very simply divided into 2 parts, right? Profits are nothing but revenues minus costs. Super simple, right? Either your revenues have gone down or your costs have gone up, or it could be a combination of both, right? That is how you kind of structure the profitability case, right? Profits is revenue minus cost. Now, again, as I said, you know that everyone has taken a hit. Could be threat of substitute, new entrant, could be anything, right? To me, now I know it's either revenue or profit, could be a combination of both. Now, as an interviewee, I would say, okay, Anurag, I'll probably break this down to revenue and cost. Now, because everyone has taken a hit, my hypothesis is something is going off in the revenue part of this, and I want to start with that, right? Because you have a choice, revenue and cost. What do you really want to explore? As a consultant, we always follow a hypothesis-driven approach. You probably would have heard about this. Hypothesis is what our experience and gut telling us, like what is going off, right? Now, if costs were actually the issue, it could not be unless until everyone takes the same supplier, everyone takes the same process. It would not be that everyone's cost would be going really up, and because of that, profits are going down, right? So revenue is a fairly good estimate of where to start, right? And as an interviewer, I said, yeah, Anurag, it sounds good. Let's start with that. Now, within revenue, right? Let me take a pause. Within revenue, what are the 3 to 4 key questions that you'd want to ask? Open to questions again. One question that I've already noted is we are different revenue streams. But how do I really break this down, right? It's all about structure. What is reduction in sale? We'll talk about that, Saudagar, but then let's say revenues are down by 20%. What's the most selling product? Everyone is talking about, great, yeah, product wise sales is super important. And let me also just go ahead. So revenue, number of quantity down by MEP of product gone, MRP of product gone down. Great, great question, Dhruv. Again, within revenue, see, all the guys probably know what might be going off, right? The interviewer just wants you to give a breakdown everywhere, wherever it's possible. Give a structure to the case, right? Profit is equal to revenue minus cost. Revenue and cost is level 1 breakdown, right? Profit is again revenue minus cost. Then revenue, then can I further break down revenue, right? Revenue is P into Q, price into quantity, as simple as that. Radhika, I saw your questions. Let me get back to them. Price into quantity, right? Simple thing. Either because your revenue is down, either your quantity is down or your price is down, or both of them are down, right? Now, I ask a question, right? Revenue is price into quantity. Do I know whether the price of the product has gone down? The moment I ask this question, the challenge is that it's a conglomerate, right? I don't have one price. So the great question to ask is, as you guys have already asked, right? Is there any sort of a revenue split that you have across products? And to that, as an interviewer, I give you certain data points and listen to them very, very carefully, right? So the data points are, great question, Anurag. With respect to products, our major revenue comes from the tobacco product, which is 50% of our revenue comes from tobacco. 30% of our revenue comes from hotels, and 20% of our revenue comes from stationery items. That's it, right? That's like the first data point. Second data point is hotels, we have not seen a decline in revenue. Stationery, we have seen some decline in revenue. Tobacco, we have seen a massive decline in revenue, right? That's like the second key data point. Now, since I've given you these two data points, what are some of the insights? As an interviewee, I should first of all consume these data points, analyze them, and then talk about, oh, Anurag, this sounds interesting. I noticed that A, B, and C. So what are some of the insights, guys, that you gain from these two data points? Again, I'll repeat the data points again. Revenue split is 50% tobacco, 30% hotels, 20% stationery. Second is tobacco has taken a hit, hotel has not, stationery has okay. Demand in tobacco must be down. Good hypothesis, and we'll talk about whether it's demand or whether it's something else, right? Can we apply an 80-20 rule there? Great, you should, Pratik, as simple as that. Consultants do not solve the problem entirely. They always do this 80-20 rule, and they always go with the, again, biggest fish, right? Which looks to me, tobacco is the biggest fish, and also because tobacco is taking a huge hit. Taxes have been increased by huge percentage. Great. So see, taxes have increased a good percentage. Great. Demand has gone down. Great, right? Very good hypothesis. Note them down in your diary, right? Whenever, let's say, I'm solving a case, I'll note them down. Potential issues would be there. The idea is for you to not say it out loud, but traverse the journey and go and reach out to these key issues, right? So the insights are, as you guys already said, right? Let's do the 80-20 rule. There's something interesting which is going on in tobacco. That's like insight one. There's always something super interesting going on with hotels. Why is hotels not taking a hit, but tobacco is? Very, very interesting. But stationery has also taken a hit, right? It could not be that only because of tax, the tobacco has gone down. There's no tax as such on stationery, special tax on stationery, right? Those are certain key insights that pop to my head. Now, I take, as you guys said, I'll take an 80-20 approach, and I will focus more on tobacco. That I'll say, Anurag, this seems super interesting because tobacco is like 50% of our business, and tobacco is taking a hit. I'd want to diagnose tobacco first, and then if time permits, then we can jump onto stationery as well. Great approach, right? You do an 80-20, you only have 40-45 minutes to solve the case, guys. You need not solve the entire case. You need not solve for each of the key issues, right? I start with tobacco, right? Now, how can I further split this up, right? Always, guys, always think, how can you split things up? How can you create a structure around it versus talking about things like, oh, tax could have gone up, this could have gone down, right? These are potential issues, but as a consultant, you always structure it down. The greatest, there are a couple of ways you structure generally revenue, right? Either there's a marketing funnel, right? You would have heard about it. Awareness, accessibility, price, usage, that sort of funnel. Or the other option, which I prefer the most, is a user journey, right? Or a customer journey. And that customer journey really encompasses the entire thing, right? So we will start with the customer journey, right? Again, you could have talked about awareness, accessibility, price, usage with the marketing funnel, but let me take this, right? Now, let's say, okay, Anurag, I'd now want to break this up into a customer journey and just want to see where is this really going off, right? This is how the customer journey for a tobacco product, let's take a cigarette, looks like, right? The consumer feels the need to smoke. Smoker is aware about the brand. He goes to a store which has cigarette, asks the shopkeeper for the cigarette, shopkeeper provides the cigarette, customer takes it, makes the payment, goes out of the shop, lights and smokes, right? That's like a good 7-step journey of a smoker. Even though you're not a smoker, you probably know how this is how it works, right? Now you'll travel the entire journey, right? Anurag, let's talk about consumer feels the need to smoke. It couldn't be all of a sudden. And some people give me reasons, right? When I done this case fairly, wherein oh, people probably became more aware. Do you think like in a quarter people would become aware about smoking? I'm pretty sure it would not happen, right? So it's pretty sure first option is out. And the idea is not for you to test it out, talk this is right and wrong, but the idea is for you to show them that I have taken an exhaustive approach. Now, even if I'm not able to get to the root cause, it tells me that I'm super good at structuring, right? And I will get super brownie points if I'm able to draw a customer journey like this. So first part, probably not an issue, right? Second part, smoker is mostly aware of the brand. Now here you can ask question like, has any new substitute like come in, right? E-cigarettes, anything could have come in, right? There my answer was good question, Anurag, but the cigarette market has been fairly been stable, right? There's no new entrant, and we're a fairly successful brand. So it would not be that because of a new entrant, I'm like drastically off all of a sudden, right? A new entrant, if it were the case, I would probably see some sort of a trend. It would not be that, oh, all of a sudden my profits are like off for a quarter, right? So it's majorly not that the smoker is mostly aware of the brand. He is aware of the brand. So you can cross off the second one. Third is he goes to a store, gets a cigarette. You can talk about accessibility here, right? That Anurag is our cigarettes actually reaching the stores? To me, for that, I answer yes. The cigarettes are reaching the store, right? Now you ask the shopkeeper for a cigarette. The shopkeeper is able to give you a cigarette. Now the next couple of things, right? Shopkeeper provides a cigarette and customer takes it, makes the payment, goes out of the shop and license smokes. I am pretty sure once you have the cigarette, you can go out and smoke it off, right? There wouldn't be a problem there, unless and until again certain products have some sort of retention thing or post usage customer service, but that's not the case with the cigarette, right? So there's something really off within these problematic areas, right? Now I'll say, okay, let's say the shopkeeper provides you the cigarette. The customer takes it and makes the payment. So it looks like there's something off out here, right? And then I'll ask that, okay, Anurag, to me, it looks like there's something off with this particular step. Now, I'd want to ask, right? I can further break this down. As a customer, I take it and I make the payment. Is there any problem giving the cigarette? Probably not. Is there a problem with the payment itself? Right? Now, and then the interview would be, that's interesting. What do you mean by payment, right? Now, the moment someone gives you that sort of a hint, right? That's something that you have to grab. That okay, I get this is coming from the interview, then there could be something off here, right? I can split down payment, right? I can split down payment into accessibility of payment, right? Wherein let's say I don't have the money, or I'm just not able to give the money, right? Again, you break it down into two parts. So you see revenue, profit, revenue. Sorry guys. You see profit was the first level. First level was revenue minus cost. Second level was price into quantity. Third level was this sort of a structure. Fourth level is payment, right? So, I've already created a beautiful tree, a beautiful issue tree sort of a thing. Within this payment, I'll talk about, okay, let's talk about these two things, right? If I have the money, I should be able to pay for it. But do I have the money, right? And there we talk about money is generally two parts, online and offline, right? It's 2016-17. Online probably is not there, right? Right now, everyone has Paytm, UPay, whatever it is, right? Back in 2016-17, probably people didn't have digital Utnada, right? Our pan wala shop was still taking in cash, right? And then I will talk about that, Anurag, it looks like there's something off with cash, right? And there it should probably strike up that what happened in 2016 and 17 was demonetization, right? Now a lot of people have this good hunch. Oh, it's 16-17. What really happened? What macro event happened? That was demonetization. Even if you're aware about that, it's a journey that I have really traversed and I have reached onto demonetization, right? That is what they're looking for. And the moment I talk about demonetization, I can also bring the other insight, right? That to me, it looks a good enough bet. The reason is hotels weren't facing a decline, right? Hotels, generally people don't go and just give out cash like 10,000 le lo yaar, 100 rupees, 500 rupees le lo, right? People generally use credit cards or debit cards, right? And that's another insight which I can couple this couple this with this other insight that cash could be an issue, right? And if we had more time, we could have gone through why is this cash an issue, and I could have asked for more key data points, right? Probably if I were having some sort of a data point with respect to channels of payments, right? I know we guys don't have the time, and if you're able to hit this, right, that something is off with cash, you have more or less solved the problem, right? Uh, what's next? Yeah, what's next? Now at this point, an interviewer will actually talk about enough supply of tobacco to fulfill demand. For the other, this could be the case. But when the moment I talk about supply, all of a sudden would not be the case. Just keep that in mind. Closing the case, right? At this point, we will tell you, okay, Anurag, this looks like we have kind of gotten to the root cause. Can you summarize the case for me, right? And there, that's very simple, right? You always start with the top-down approach, right? We were talking about the client who was facing losses in profit. We talked about ABC things, and it looks like the client is seeing decline in revenues due to demonetization, and because of which the profits are going down. Why? Three things, right? Cash is probably the biggest issue. I know we didn't reverse the entire case. If we would have, I would have given you another data point on small store sales for really hitting it off, right? And there, okay, small stores, by small stores, I mean small shops generally take payment in cash. That was another data point. And the third data point was tobacco was severely impacted. People generally pay for tobacco 10 rupees, at least in 2016-17 by cash, and hotels was not, right? And these are the three insights that you give, which proves your hypothesis that the client was facing a decline in revenues because of this demonetization, right? And that is how you end the case. And guys, again, taking a step back, it's not important. It could be the key issue. The key issue could be anything, could be something else, right? Even if I was not able to find the key issue, I would still make the case. I would still go to the next round. The reason is I divided this into 4-step framework, 4-step structure, and that is all that they're looking for, right? A lot of time, people don't expect to solve the case. People expect you to at least break down the case so that you are able to get to a minimum point to prove that you have a good problem solving structure in your mind. And that is about it. Happy to take any sort of question that you have, either about the case, about the process, about consulting in general. I know, see, generally it's a live case. I would have done this with Archit if I'm much more clearer. But we couldn't do that. But hopefully this gave you some sort of an insight about how things are. At Career, we keep on doing consulting cohorts, wherein it's a 4-week cohort. We're starting one tonight at 6 p.m. If you want to, so you can still register, I guess. And we really go through a much more deeper journey into how to really crack consulting, how to really create stellar CVs, and how do you solve cases. As far as any website or book you would recommend for, see, our book that I recommend is I Am Ahmedabad Ki Case Book. You can just type it out, I Am Ahmedabad Case Book. For India, probably that's like one of the best case books out there. The other one is Case Interviews Cracked. IIT Madras guys wrote about it. Study these two books and you should be in a fairly good position to understand case frameworks, right? Having said that, you really need to practice them, right? You need to practice them either with your peers or with actual consultants. Why I stress about actual consultants is that peers jo honge, even they wouldn't have any clue, right? If you practice a case with me, I'll tell you that this is where you're going off, and because of which you may be able to get to the next round, you may not be able to go to the next round. So always try to practice it with people. But yeah, I Am Ahmedabad and Case Interviews Cracked. There's also some other thing where people talk about case in point, वगैरह. Don't go about them. Yeah, those are like pretty old books. It seems worth the grind nowadays. These are earning for better. Is it worth the grind? Good question. Yeah, Pratik. So, what do you really want to get out of consulting, right? That's the question. For me, it's about the kind of problem statement that we solve. And I'm talking about clients. I'm talking about problem statement as big as I'm working with a bank which has $5 billion and it wants to invest $5 billion into India, and I'm helping them to invest, right? That's a huge problem statement. And I like that sort of problem statement, as simple as that, right? That's for me. Another thing could be I want to work with the CXOs and chairmen, see how do they actually think about stuff, right? That you will not be able to get as an SE. If it's only about the money, uh, starting level may an SE would actually get you more. Consulting may only hit it out of the park when you become a partner there. You'll have to stay for the long time. Is it worth the grind? Totally depends on you, yaar. For me, it's I work 10 to 12 hours, which is pretty decent. But if you're working 16, 17 hours, then I don't think it's worth it. Software skill required as a fresher, no, yaar. If you're talking about front-end strategy consulting role, Nilabra, they only look for your structuring. You'll majorly be working with Excel and PowerPoint. So no software skills required as such. If you're going for an analytics firm, वहाँ पे if you are really taking in big data sets, वहाँ पे R or Python वगैरह could be required, but not in general. If we don't have any other question, then we can actually close the case. 5 when do I really need MBA? Yeah, Saudagar, I'll be C. Irrespective of whatever people are telling you, for you, the ideal route could be you get into consulting, you climb your way up. If you are going to apply right now into a McKinsey, Bain, BCG, AT Kearney, or even a Dalberg, it'll be tough to get into it. Does Dalberg hire from? Yeah, Dalberg does hire from IIM's Lucky. It only used to go to ISB, but it's going to pretty much open for everyone. But yeah, so वो रहता है. That's the challenge. Sadly, they see, yeah, Sambha would have told you, right? Education, experience, and extracurriculars. If you're able to knock it out of the park in like one of them, and by one of them is extracurricular में तुम India को represent कर दिया, right? Then you probably don't require like a good degree, but you have to see where you're good at. 5 years of software experience is not, unless until it's like Google ka experience, your work experience would not be super strong enough. So go into a consulting firm and climb your way from there, or go into a strategy role and climb your way from up there. Okay, I'm going to again take a step back, apologize for the glitches that happened in between. Really apologize for that. But I hope you enjoyed the session. Again, we weren't able to do a deeper dive. We have consulting cohorts. One is starting right now, wherein we really do a deep dive. We also get like a one-to-one session with someone from a McKinsey, Bain, BCG, or other consulting mentors. That he or she will be able to answer your questions very deeply. Tough case interview problem statement that you have found. Dhruv, toughest that I've come across, man, is hi Anurag, you have Dhruv, who is a good friend of yours, and Dhruv is not motivated in his life. Solve for that. That's a tough problem statement. And that's a miscellaneous case. And the reason it's a tough problem statement is I don't have any sort of framework, right? You will have to create a framework on the fly. That's a tough problem statement to solve, right? Easier problem statements are profit hai, revenue hai, market entry hai, growth hai. Those frameworks are available. The moment there's no framework, then it becomes super tough. All right, guys, I will close this in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, for coming in. Take care and have a great Sunday. Happy Mother's Day. Take your mom out to some nice place and enjoy the day with her. Bye-bye.